Welcome to a new episode of the Scripting Them podcast. I'm Fernando, as usual, and in today's episode, I want to cover how to stay up to date with emerging tech trends, and or in other words, how to not die trying to stay relevant in the IT industry. Because let's face it, it doesn't matter what industry you're working on. There's always new technology emerging. There is always new development that can have the potential to change the way you work. So how do you know which of these technologies is going to be relevant? Which of these technologies should you be focusing on? And which ones should you be ignoring because they're not really that great, or they don't have the potential to last longer? How do you pick? How do you actually learn about these new things that are happening? There is a lot of information around, but also there is a lot of misinformation flowing around the internet. So how do you pick and choose? How do you stay updated? Because as developers, if we don't update ourselves, if we don't stay up to date with the industry, there is a huge possibility of us being outdated by someone else, replaced by a new developer that is, that was faster and more keen into picking the new tech and learning it faster than us. It's not a constant risk, but it's definitely a risk to think about and to consider. So what are, the strategies that you should follow? The first thing that I would recommend for you to focus on is, or to figure out first, put it that way, is to understand the best way you learn through. Because that will play a huge deal into understanding what to do next and how to stay updated. You might be a visual learner, so watching videos might be more beneficial for you. Maybe you like a good book and spend days or hours at least a day just going through its pages and reading and learning through that. Maybe you like the quick, short article that you can find online to get, quick answers. Or heck, maybe, nowadays, maybe you like to go to ChatGPT or, a related or similar LLM and directly ask questions there. While I wouldn't recommend the last one, it's a potentially risky but valid learning process as well. So, once you know that, once you understand which is the best way for you to learn, then you can start curating the sources for information that there are out there. You have tons of online information. Clearly, YouTube is a huge source of information, useful information. Mind you, there is also a lot of crap in there. But if you know how to filter, if you know what to look for, there are many developers in there sharing insights, sharing or teaching technology that you can subscribe to for free and get a lot of information, up-to-date information, right? And if you're a visual learner, then maybe just watching a 5-minute, 10-minute video every week, you'll have all the tools that you need to at least know what's happening in the industry. Because we're at that stage right now. You have to get updates on what's happening, what's new, without you being actively searching and researching to understand what is being developed. So that's one way. The other, if you're more into articles, something like, if you've never heard of it, tons of developers know about it, but the daily.dev plugin for browsers allows you to have a list of articles tailored to your interests whenever you open a new tab. So if you enjoy spending some time going through articles, reading and seeing what's new, that might be a good tool. That might be a good way to figure out what's being talked about, because whenever you see a new development, maybe a new framework, maybe a new library, you'll see that all articles are talking about it, the same or similar topics. So definitely it's a good way to stay up to date. and the fact that you can customize it to whatever your interests are, that's also a great feature. So that way, the information that you get is tailored to your industry, is tailored to your needs. Then again, if you like books, then definitely there are different ways in which you can stay up to date. Some of the more technical publications like Manning, like Apress, PactPub, they usually have like a subscription. Clearly, now we're talking about spending money, but if we're talking about books, there are very few good free books, and finding them online for free is not definitely something that I would advise. So if you're into books, then you're definitely used to spending money on them. And if you are, then getting a subscription for money for O'Reilly, it's also a great way. Most of these publications also have like an early access program, like Manning, for example, has one that allows you to get access to books that are being written as they are being written, and you can see what people are talking about, see what new technology being described or talked on those books, and you get that information sent to your email. So definitely a great way to stay up to date, if you like books, if you like learning through books. Because let's face it, just browsing Amazon, for example, or going to your local bookstore and seeing what's new is not the greatest way. It's not the best way, because books tend to be outdated very fast, if you will. Technology is changing very quickly, so maybe if you go to the bookstore near your house, near your town, you might find books that talk about technology from a year ago, which by now could be completely different. So definitely, let's say that learning through books is the riskier way to stay updated, because it's a lot easier to get information that is already old. That said, if you go the digital book route, if you go with subscription programs, if you go with early access programs, then there is a good chance for you to be able to reach the updated books as soon as they are being written. So that's also a great place to look for. Now, there's always the human aspect of the whole thing, right? I mean, we're talking about subscriptions either through YouTube subscriptions, or learning through articles, or getting books and so on. But there's also the community aspect of the whole process of getting staying up to date, because in the end, if you're part of a community, whether you like it or not, if you're part of a subsection, let's put it that way, of the IT industry, then you're part of a community. Game developer, web developer, data scientist. There is always a subset of developers focused on what's happening there. So there should always be places where those people tend to congregate online, let's put it that way, without having to move physically. But things that, Twitter is actually a great place. There is always, like in every community, you'll find a lot of garbage. You'll find a lot of problems and dramas and everything. But if you know how to filter it, you'll be able to pick up on trends. You'll be able to pick up on what people are talking about when a new piece of technology is released. And that is a great indicator also of what the community is looking for, what the community is excited about. Places like dev.to or hashnote.com, they're also great if you like articles, if you like learning through articles, because it'll help you to quickly see what people are discussing on those articles and what people are writing about. So those are great communities to join as developers. And there's always some of these. There are always and there are also Discord servers specifically that tailor for different technologies, different frameworks, for example, or communities form around people, which are also interesting. If you follow some content creators, for example, in the tech space, they might joining their Discord servers might be a good option. Mind you, you don't have to be active on them, but at least, just reading what people are talking about, reading or seeing the announcements will give you a clue as to, what this community is interested about. If this is a community around a content developer that creates content about web development, in the end, you'll be able to pick up on trends within the web development industry. So that's also a great way to at least pick up on the topics. Maybe you won't get any details as to what the technology is, or how it works or anything, but at least you'll get a name, you get a source of information, and then you can keep digging on your own. So that's also a different path that you can follow that can be useful. In the end, these are all ways for you to learn about what the industry is talking about and what new pieces of technology are being developed. If you want to take it further, if you want more details, if you want to understand how that technology works, the best way for you to learn, looking at it from a practical point of view of eventually you want to use that technology, is to play with that technology, is to create some examples, is to follow maybe a basic tutorial and then expand it on your own. But if you stay at the reading phase and you eventually want to make the jump of using that technology on your day-to-day, then you'll have a gap there. So it's a great way to narrow that gap and to make it easier for you to incorporate that piece of technology into your day-to-day tasks, is to play with it. Maybe create a demo, maybe create a very simple snippet and then just write about it, explain it through the writing experience, through the actual content creation, if you will, and explaining how the technology works. You're also learning about the technology to a point where you can explain it. You probably need to learn 100% of a feature to explain 50% of it. That's how I like to see it. So in the end, through the explanation process, you end up learning a lot about it. So that's also a great way to stay up to date and to learn new things. Now, in the end, it's all about finding the right balance. In the end, it's about remembering that, one, you have to stay updated because otherwise your job might be at risk, whether we like it or not. That's part of our profession. Then understanding what is the best way for you to learn, what is the best method that you learn through, and then picking and curating the information channels for that method, essentially. YouTube, content creators, online, sources of articles, maybe book publisher subscriptions, and maybe online courses. Maybe you like LinkedIn Learning, maybe you like Udemy. Whatever works for you, try to spend some time curating those sources and sticking to the ones that you actually enjoy, that make you learn faster, and that give you the information that you want. And if you want to take it further, again, remember, maybe a good demo project is also useful. Just keep in mind that this is something that has to keep going. This is an ongoing activity, but it doesn't have to take 100% of your time. In the end, if you're working as a developer, and you're able to incorporate this new technology into your day-to-day, you'll be learning through experience. So that's something that you don't have to worry about. But if you're not, and let's face it, there is a ton of technology that we're not able to incorporate everything into our day-to-day. So let's just not get overwhelmed by the huge amount of information that there is around. Just limited at knowing what's there, limited at knowing what people are talking about, what the trends are, and then pick and choose some of those to play around a little bit. A great way to do this over and over and turn this learning process into an ongoing process that is sustainable is to create content around it. I'm not talking about turning into an influencer or anything like that. It's just the easiest way I can explain it is create an account on hashnote.com or dev.to or medium.com, which are all great places for you to publish articles, and then pick the technology you want to learn about and write articles about it. Not because you want to become internet famous or anything, but the process of writing those articles will make you also play with the technology enough for you to be aware of it and be informed about it without having to spend months around a technology that you're not using every day. In the process, you're learning and explaining things to others, which might help the community, or that might not even be your intention, and that's fantastic. Just create content around it. And I say content because, again, while writing is the type of content creation that has the least amount of friction when starting, because you just have to create an account and then start writing. If you feel like creating video, having a podcast to discuss it, or any other type of content, that's also fantastic. The point is that you'll get to play with the technology enough to then explain it. And that will give you the insight as to what the technology is doing, how it works, and by default, you'll be updated. You'll be up to date. That's a strategy that myself I've been using for years now. I have my own articles where I talked about React, for example, for years without me having to actually work a single day as a React developer. But I got to a point where I was actually able to create projects on my own, my own side projects using React, because I had learned enough through articles that I was writing on the side. So that's all. That's why I recommend it so often to people, because it's a great way for you to have an excuse to play with technology. Let's put it that way. Sometimes we just have to trick ourselves into thinking that we're forced to do something even though we're not. And that's it. Remember, this is not something that should be a weight on your career, but it is something that as developers we need to do. We need to stay up to date. So hopefully in all my babbling on this episode, I gave you some ideas as to where to look for information, or at least some strategies as to how to stay up to date. All right? And that's it. In the meantime, I'll see you on the next one. But until then, like I always say, happy coding. And that was it for this episode of the Scripting Them podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you can find me online on Twitter at TheDeepMan123. And you can also find the podcast YouTube channel just searching for The Scripting Them on YouTube. Thank you again, and catch you on the next one.